today I wanted to talk to you about relationships as a narcissist and maybe what you can learn from a narcissist about relationships. Maybe not. Before we jump in, make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up or like button, drop some comments below, questions, what's working for you, what's not, any ideas if you have some things you want me to cover, topics, considerations, so forth. All right, so what I wanted to talk about today is the art of mutual benefit, or in other words, building collaborative relationships. And what I mean by what you might be able to learn from a narcissist about relationships. I mean, I know that must sound funny because narcissists really aren't great at relationships typically. But what I have been discovering in this journey to awaken to myself more as a covert narcissist is that there are more aspects to relationship than we sort of typically think of, or maybe are accepted or understood in our culture. Here's what I mean. A lot of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, in particular family, maybe fits more into what I'm going to talk about. But with those other ones, often it's mostly just kind of based on emotion in a lot of ways. Feeling, you have fun with your friends, you enjoy being around them, you are attracted to your romantic partner, they make you feel certain ways, you make them feel certain ways, things like that. It's all in the milieu of kind of that emotionality. Now, in emotionally feeling each other, so empathy as well. But as a covert narcissist, or a narcissist in general, a lot of my relating to the world isn't actually through the lens of emotion in the same way it is for most normies, though it's part of it, but there's also other aspects to it. And so understanding that, being aware of it, and then strategically utilizing that to build relationships that work is what we're going to talk about a little bit more today. And that's where I'm talking about the art of mutual benefit, or collaborative relationships. And so it's really understanding that one other aspect of relationships for everybody, even normie to normie, but particularly with narcissists, because we don't have a lot of that emotional aspect, is that there's also a collaborative element, a mutual benefit element, and what we can kind of learn from each other, and what we can, the things we can take from each other in terms of, like, I might be good at, thinking through a problem, or like a game, like my brain immediately goes to all the strategy and ways to get advantages and, all that kind of stuff, where yours, if you're the other person, might be like, how much fun is this game? Am I going to feel happy playing it? And so for me, the how much fun is it? Am I going to feel happy playing it? Might not be obvious, or like one of the first things I think of, but I think it's a part of it. When in playing a game, you want it to be fun. You want to feel happier playing it, generally. And so the normie in that interaction can share that with me. They don't have to be like, this makes me happy and I have fun, but just through their actions, what they say, their activity. And then on the other side, I can share like, oh, well, I see this strategy, or this part is there's a weakness in the game, and things like that, because that's what I enjoy about it. And then they can get that from it and improve at the game. They have a better time perhaps because they win more, or whatever the case may be, just to be able to see it through that lens. And it's funny because throughout at least my adult life, I don't remember as much as a kid, but one thing that people have said to me, friends of mine and so forth, over the years with some regularity, is something like, I love the way your brain works, or I love how you think about it this way. And that's great to hear. We all love that, and especially as a narcissist, great. You think I'm smart or whatever. But what I think it also points to is that what those people were pointing out is the difference in the way my brain works from theirs was what was interesting or intriguing. And so if you can frame interactions and relationships with the understanding that there is a mutual benefit that can occur because of the differences in the way the brains work, rather than it being something that makes the relationship weaker or more problematic, it can actually be turned on its head and be understood to be something to make the relationship richer, looking at that diversity of the way our minds and our brains work. So it's kind of like a well-balanced recipe in a sense. There's a certain amount of sweet and then a certain amount of acid to balance that out. And so when you use this understanding effectively, consciously, with awareness, you can make a more well-balanced meal rather than everything being sweet, like a bunch of ice cream sundae, chocolate, and all that stuff. Maybe a balanced flavor that covers all the spectrums of flavor. I don't know. I like cooking. I like food. So that's a good analogy or metaphor for me. Hopefully that works for you. But something else to understand is even though the narcissist doesn't interact in relationship the same way as normies in a lot of cases, just like everybody else, they still want to feel like their efforts matter. And so if you're the person in a relationship with a narcissist, understanding where they are either consciously or even unconsciously trying to add value to the relationship and acknowledging that in yourself, certainly, but speaking it sometimes can go a long way to having the relationship work well and be kind of smooth rather than as rocky. Because understand that as narcissists, because we operate differently, but the messaging we get from the world is like, this is the way you're supposed to do it. And we're like over here doing it a different way. And so without that awareness and without that, even assistance or reflection from our world, we really get a lot of messages that we're doing it wrong or that we're bad at relationship because everybody's doing it this way and we do it this other way. But if you as a narcissist yourself, first and foremost, can understand that being different in the way you do relationship doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you operate differently. And so you're not going to get necessarily the same results out of relationships that you see other people getting, but you're going to get a set of results that are still satisfactory or make your life, that enrich your life, let's say. Also, as the person in relationship with a narcissist, it's also likely you'll get more enrichment from the relationship if you understand that they're not just doing it wrong or they don't just suck at relationship. They really just operate differently in relationship. And so if you can understand that mutual benefit or the collaboration part, it can really make things richer and work better. I kind of go back to one of those phrases that operates, one of those foundational phrases that operates or is in operation for the narcissist, and that's the thought of what's in it for me. And of course, that's really often looked at as a negative, like, oh, you're so self-centered, so selfish. And yeah, it certainly can be that. But it doesn't have to be. And operating from the perspective of what's in it for me doesn't mean you're a bad person or there's something broken about you. It's just sort of that standard base level that you learned as a narcissist. And so it doesn't mean anything necessarily negative about the other person and their experience. It's just understanding the perspective or the lens that's being that life is being viewed through. So as the non-narcissist, you could, rather than say something like, this way you're being doesn't work for me, you could say something like, this way you're being, or this way we're interacting, I'm finding it difficult. Let's look at how we can do it in a way that benefits both of us. And just something as simple as that can turn the tide for the narcissist. And the narcissist can say the same thing. Like, I can see that you're upset here or having trouble with what I'm saying to you. And I'm not meaning to cause you despair or upset you. But can we look at how resolving this or handling this, we can both benefit from it? Because then it's much easier for me or much more available for me to do that and to have a satisfactory outcome. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. It's a little bit of a nuanced topic and subject because so many of the things are in that realm of, the sort of societal messaging of the narcissist is just bad at relationship or does it wrong. But if you can understand these subtle differences, it can really turn that over on its head. And the other thing to consider in close relationships, partnerships or close friendships, when this type of sharing of sort of these nuance and deeper things can happen, you could also set up a structure where each person's skill or the things they naturally bring can be seen as parts of the whole rather than something that causes butting heads. So each partner can take the roles that play to their strength. So like if you're better at emotional connection, then you're kind of the lead of that in our relationship, and I'm better at problem solving or strategic thinking. I'm kind of the lead at that. And it doesn't mean we don't try to see it from the other person's perspective or move into that realm. Just understanding that those are the posts or the roles that we can sort of lean into to make a well-balanced relationship. So mutual benefit isn't about like compromising and taking less. It's really about creating a dynamic where both people feel valued for their uniqueness. All right, hope that was valuable. Go ahead and drop some comments below. Remember to subscribe, thumbs up or like this video. In terms of comments, I love interacting with you guys. If you have questions, concerns, or if you have other ideas for topics you're interested in me talking about, or ideas or thoughts, put those below too. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, you take care.